Question 1. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to optimizing the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam process. Which of the following strategies best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for conducting a fair and transparent entrance examination? Option A. Conducting a thorough review of the current examination administration, identifying potential bottlenecks in question paper distribution and answer sheet collection, and proposing streamlined procedures that maintain strict invigilation standards and candidate privacy. Option B. Prioritizing the use of advanced biometric identification systems for all candidates, even if it requires significant additional fees not originally budgeted for in the application process. Option C. Expediting the marking process by introducing automated scoring for essay-based questions, even if it means reducing the number of human evaluators involved. Option D. Implementing a phased introduction of new, more rigorous question types across all subjects to enhance academic rigor, without prior announcement to candidates. Correct answer is D. Implementing a phased introduction of new, more rigorous question types across all subjects to enhance academic rigor, without prior announcement to candidates. Explanation. The scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring a fair and transparent entrance examination process, all within the specific regulatory framework of Andhra University. Misinterpreting or disregarding these regulations can lead to legal challenges, reputational damage, and a compromised admission process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization aligns with the established rules and principles governing university admissions in Andhra Pradesh. The correct approach involves a systematic review and enhancement of existing admission processes, prioritizing fairness, transparency, and adherence to Andhra University specific entrance examination guidelines. This approach is right because it directly addresses the need for improvement, while remaining firmly within the established legal and regulatory boundaries. Andhra University's entrance examination regulations, which are designed to ensure meritocracy and equal opportunity, mandate that any changes must be implemented without compromising the integrity of the selection process. Optimizing processes under this framework means identifying bottlenecks or inefficiencies that do not disadvantage any candidate and are fully compliant with the university's published admission policies and any relevant state or national educational directives applicable to Andhra Pradesh. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the impact on fairness and transparency would be professionally unacceptable. This would violate the ethical principle of equal opportunity and potentially contravene specific clauses within Andhra University's examination rules that emphasize a thorough and unbiased evaluation of all applicants. Another incorrect approach that involves introducing new selection criteria not previously disclosed or approved by the university would also be a significant regulatory failure. This undermines the trust placed in the examination process and could lead to accusations of bias or favorability, directly contradicting the spirit and letter of transparent admission procedures. A third incorrect approach that bypasses established approval channels for process changes, even if seemingly beneficial, risks violating internal university governance and procedural guidelines, which are implicitly part of the regulatory framework governing the entrance exam. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the Andhra University's entrance examination regulations and admission policies. This should be followed by a needs assessment to identify areas for improvement. Any proposed optimization must then be evaluated against these regulations for compliance, fairness, and transparency. A pilot testing phase, if feasible, can help identify unintended consequences before full implementation. Finally, all changes should be documented and communicated through the appropriate university channels, ensuring accountability and adherence to the established governance structure. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates that some applicants to the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam may be leveraging informal connections to gain an advantage in the application review process, potentially bypassing standard verification procedures. How should the admissions committee address this feedback to maintain the integrity of the entrance exam? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of all applications, cross-referencing submitted documents with official records and university admission policies, and investigate any identified discrepancies according to established university procedures. Option B. Dismiss the feedback as unsubstantiated rumors and continue with the admissions process as originally planned without any additional scrutiny. Option C. Issue a general statement to all applicants emphasizing the importance of adhering to the official application guidelines and discouraging the use of informal channels. Option D. Prioritize applications from candidates who are perceived to have stronger informal connections to expedite the review process. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of all applications, cross-referencing submitted documents with official records and university admission policies, and investigate any identified discrepancies according to established university procedures. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient admissions with the ethical obligation to ensure fairness and transparency for all applicants. The Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam, like any reputable academic institution's admission process, is governed by specific regulations and guidelines designed to uphold these principles. A key aspect of these regulations is the fair and equitable treatment of all candidates, regardless of their background or the source of their information. The correct approach involves a commitment to upholding the established admission criteria and procedures as outlined by Andhra University. This means that all information provided by applicants must be verified against official documentation, and that any discrepancies or potential misrepresentations are handled according to the university's stated policies. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it adheres strictly to the regulatory framework governing the entrance exam, ensuring a level playing field for all. It prioritizes integrity and fairness, which are paramount in academic admissions. An incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment or bypass established verification processes based on informal feedback or perceived influence. This would violate the principles of fairness and equal opportunity enshrined in the university's admission guidelines. Such actions could lead to accusations of bias, compromise the credibility of the admissions process, and potentially result in legal challenges or disciplinary actions against the university and its officials. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the feedback entirely without proper investigation, as this could lead to overlooking genuine issues that might affect the fairness of the process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the university's admission regulations and guidelines. When faced with stakeholder feedback, the first step is to understand the nature of the feedback and its potential implications. If the feedback suggests a procedural irregularity or a potential breach of fairness, it must be investigated thoroughly. This investigation should be conducted impartially, adhering to established protocols. If the feedback points to a need for clarification or improvement in the process, it should be escalated to the appropriate administrative bodies within Andhra University for review and potential policy adjustment. The ultimate goal is to ensure that the admissions process remains transparent, equitable, and compliant with all relevant regulations. Question 3. The risk matrix shows a high probability of delays in processing applications for the upcoming Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam due to an unexpected surge in applicant numbers. The admissions committee is under pressure to finalize the list of admitted students promptly to commence the academic session on schedule. A senior faculty member suggests prioritizing the admission of candidates who have a strong academic record in their previous qualifications, even if some supporting documents are still pending verification, to speed up the process. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam? Option A. Halt the admission process until all supporting documents for every applicant are meticulously verified, even if it means delaying the academic session, to ensure absolute adherence to procedural norms. Option B. Implement a phased admission process where candidates with complete documentation are admitted first, while those with pending documents are placed on a waiting list, with clear communication regarding the verification timeline. Option C. Proceed with admitting candidates based on their strong previous academic records, with a commitment to complete document verification post-admission to meet the urgent timeline. Option D. Accept verbal assurances of eligibility from candidates with incomplete documentation and expedite their admission, assuming their claims are accurate, to manage the workload. The correct answer is C. Proceed with admitting candidates based on their strong previous academic records, with a commitment to complete document verification post-admission to meet the urgent timeline. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for resources with the long-term integrity of the university's admission process and its reputation. The pressure to admit students quickly, especially in a competitive entrance exam context like Andhra universities, can lead to overlooking critical procedural steps. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all decisions align with the established admission guidelines and uphold fairness for all applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's documentation against the Andhra University's entrance exam regulations and the specific eligibility criteria for the program. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established rules, ensuring that only qualified candidates are admitted. This is ethically sound and legally compliant with the university's own admission framework, which is designed to maintain academic standards and fairness. It prevents potential future challenges to the admission process and upholds the university's credibility. An incorrect approach that bypasses the standard verification process to expedite admission is ethically flawed because it undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. It creates a precedent for favoritism and can lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby compromising the academic quality of the program. This also carries regulatory risk, as it violates the university's own published admission rules, potentially leading to disciplinary action or legal challenges. Another incorrect approach that involves accepting a verbal assurance of eligibility without documentary evidence is professionally negligent. It fails to establish a verifiable record of compliance, leaving the university vulnerable to disputes and accusations of arbitrary decision-making. This approach disregards the established procedures for admission, which are in place to ensure transparency and accountability. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve: first, identifying the core issue, expediting admissions versus procedural integrity. Second, consulting the Andhra University's official entrance exam prospectus and admission guidelines to understand the mandatory requirements. Third, evaluating each potential course of action against these regulations and ethical principles of fairness and transparency. Finally, choosing the option that best upholds the integrity of the admission process while still seeking efficient but compliant solutions. Question 4. Operational review demonstrates that the Andhra University Visakhapatnam Entrance Exam Admission Committee is facing significant pressure to expedite the processing of a large volume of applications to meet enrollment targets. The committee is considering implementing a streamlined review process that involves pre-screening applications based on a limited set of high-scoring criteria, with only those meeting these initial thresholds undergoing a full review. This is intended to reduce the overall processing time. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam? Option A. Develop a rapid review protocol that focuses on identifying and rejecting applications with minor administrative errors first, then fast-tracking the remaining applications for final approval without detailed scrutiny of all academic and extracurricular components. Option B. Prioritize applications from candidates who have previously expressed strong interest in the university, allowing them a faster review track compared to other applicants. Option C. Implement a multi-stage review process where all applications are initially assessed against a broad set of criteria, followed by a more in-depth evaluation of shortlisted candidates by different subcommittees, ensuring adherence to the published admission prospectus. Option D. Introduce a system where applications are ranked solely on their performance in the entrance examination, and only the top percentage of applicants are considered for further review, irrespective of other submitted documents. The correct answer is C. Implement a multi-stage review process where all applications are initially assessed against a broad set of criteria, followed by a more in-depth evaluation of shortlisted candidates by different subcommittees, ensuring adherence to the published admission prospectus. Explanation: this scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's need for timely admission decisions with the ethical obligation to ensure all applicants are treated fairly and have their applications thoroughly reviewed according to established Andhra University entrance exam guidelines. The pressure to expedite the process, while understandable from an administrative perspective, can lead to overlooking critical aspects of an applicant's profile or potentially introducing bias if shortcuts are taken. The correct approach involves a systematic and thorough review of each application, adhering strictly to the criteria and procedures outlined in the Andhra University entrance exam regulations. This ensures fairness, transparency, and compliance with the established admission framework. It upholds the principle of meritocracy and provides a consistent basis for evaluating all candidates, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the admission process. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness risks violating the principles of natural justice and fairness enshrined in university admission policies. This could lead to arbitrary decisions, potential discrimination, and a loss of confidence in the university's admission system. Similarly, an approach that focuses solely on easily quantifiable metrics without considering qualitative aspects or potential extenuating circumstances, as defined by the exam's guidelines, would be flawed. This overlooks the holistic evaluation that is often a part of university admissions and could disadvantage deserving candidates. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the Andhra University entrance exam's regulatory framework, including admission criteria, evaluation procedures, and any specific guidelines on handling large volumes of applications. They should then assess the potential impact of different approaches on fairness, accuracy, and compliance. Prioritizing adherence to established procedures, even if it requires more time, is paramount. If time constraints are a genuine issue, the appropriate course of action is to seek official guidance or resources to manage the workload without compromising the integrity of the review process, rather than deviating from the prescribed methodology. Question 5. The performance metrics show a slight decline in the overall pass rate for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam compared to the previous year, with a particular dip observed among candidates from certain rural districts. The university administration is keen to maintain its reputation for academic excellence and equitable access. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for managing this situation? Option A. Recommend a marginal reduction in the passing score for all candidates to artificially boost the pass rate and present a more favorable year-on-year comparison. Option B. Suggest modifying the syllabus for the upcoming exam to include topics that were disproportionately represented in the question, where rural candidates showed lower performance, without a comprehensive review of the syllabus's overall relevance. Option C. Focus reporting on the overall improvement in average scores for urban candidates, while omitting detailed analysis of the decline in rural district pass rates. Option D. Conduct a detailed review of the examination content and question design to identify any potential biases or areas of unexpected difficulty, and propose targeted support programs for students from affected districts based on the findings. The correct answer is D. Conduct a detailed review of the examination content and question design to identify any potential biases or areas of unexpected difficulty, and propose targeted support programs for students from affected districts based on the findings. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to achieve specific performance metrics. The need to balance these competing demands requires careful judgment to ensure that ethical principles and regulatory compliance are not compromised for the sake of superficial results. The Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam, like any reputable academic institution's admission process, is governed by regulations that prioritize fairness, transparency, and meritocracy. The action that undermines these principles, even if seemingly beneficial in the short term, can lead to severe reputational damage and legal repercussions. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective analysis of the performance metrics, identifying genuine areas for improvement in the entrance exam process itself, and proposing evidence-based strategies that align with the university's academic standards and admission policies. This approach upholds the principles of academic integrity by focusing on enhancing the quality and fairness of the examination rather than manipulating outcomes. It adheres to the spirit and letter of the Andhra University's regulatory framework for entrance examinations, which implicitly mandates a commitment to merit-based selection and the prevention of any form of unfair advantage or disadvantage. An incorrect approach that focuses on subtly influencing the difficulty of questions for specific demographic groups, even with the intention of improving overall pass rates, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This action directly contravenes the principle of equal opportunity and fairness in admissions, which is a cornerstone of academic regulations. It introduces bias into the selection process, potentially disadvantaging deserving candidates and creating an uneven playing field. Such an action could be construed as a violation of the university's internal guidelines and potentially broader educational policies that prohibit discriminatory practices. Another incorrect approach, which involves selectively highlighting positive performance metrics while downplaying or ignoring negative trends, is a form of misrepresentation. This tactic undermines transparency and accountability, which are critical components of any regulatory framework governing educational institutions. By presenting a skewed picture of performance, it prevents stakeholders from understanding the true state of the entrance examination and hinders the implementation of necessary corrective actions. This can lead to a decline in the perceived credibility of the examination and the university. A third incorrect approach, which prioritizes achieving a target pass rate through administrative adjustments rather than addressing underlying academic issues, is also professionally unsound. This approach bypasses the fundamental purpose of an entrance examination, which is to assess the aptitude and knowledge of candidates. Manipulating pass rates without a corresponding improvement in the quality of candidates or the examination process itself is a superficial solution that does not contribute to the long-term academic health of the university. It can lead to the admission of underqualified students, ultimately impacting the academic standards of the programs offered. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to ethical conduct, adherence to regulatory guidelines, and a focus on data-driven, objective analysis. Professionals must first understand the specific regulations and policies governing the institution and the examination process. They should then critically evaluate all available data, seeking to identify root causes of performance issues rather than superficial symptoms. When proposing solutions, the emphasis should always be on enhancing the integrity, fairness, and effectiveness of the process, ensuring that any changes are transparent, justifiable, and aligned with the overarching academic mission of the university. Question 6. Investigation of a scenario where an invigilator at the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam notices a discrepancy between the candidate's photograph on their hall ticket and the photograph on their government-issued identification document. The candidate insists they are the rightful holder of the hall ticket. Option A. Request the candidate to provide an additional and prescribed form of identification or a sworn affidavit on the spot to resolve the discrepancy. Option B. Allow the candidate to appear for the examination immediately, assuming the candidate is truthful, to avoid causing undue stress. Option C. Consult the official Andhra University entrance examination regulations and guidelines to determine the prescribed procedure for handling such discrepancies and follow it precisely. Option D. Bar the candidate from the examination immediately due to the photographic mismatch, citing potential impersonation. The correct answer is C. Consult the official Andhra University entrance examination regulations and guidelines to determine the prescribed procedure for handling such discrepancies and follow it precisely. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the practicalities of managing an entrance examination under the specific regulatory framework of Andhra University. The core difficulty lies in ensuring fairness and transparency while adhering to the established examination guidelines, which are paramount for the credibility of the entrance process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Andhra University entrance examination regulations concerning the handling of discrepancies in candidate information. This approach prioritizes adherence to the official guidelines, which likely stipulate a clear procedure for verifying and rectifying such issues. By consulting the university's examination handbook or relevant circulars, the invigilator can identify the authorized method for addressing the mismatch, ensuring that any action taken is compliant and does not compromise the integrity of the examination or the rights of the candidate. This upholds the principle of procedural fairness mandated by university regulations. An incorrect approach would be to make an arbitrary decision without consulting the official regulations. For instance, allowing the candidate to proceed without verification might violate rules regarding candidate identification and could lead to impersonation or other malpractices, undermining the examination's validity. Conversely, immediately barring the candidate without exploring a resolution mechanism outlined in the university's guidelines would be an overreach and could be seen as a failure to follow due process, potentially leading to a grievance. Another incorrect approach, such as demanding additional, non-prescribed documentation on the spot, would also be a violation, as it deviates from the established examination protocol and could be perceived as discriminatory or unfair. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. First, identify the specific rule or regulation that applies to the situation. Second, consult the official documentation for the prescribed procedure. Third, follow the procedure meticulously. And finally, document the action taken and the justification based on the regulations. This systematic approach ensures compliance, fairness, and accountability. Question 7. Operational review demonstrates that a significant number of applications for the Andhra University entrance exam exhibit strong academic records, but a few also include compelling personal circumstances that might warrant special consideration. The admissions committee is tasked with ensuring adherence to the university's established entrance examination regulations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam? Option A. Delay the announcement of final admission lists to allow for an extended period of individual candidate review, seeking additional information to assess the holistic suitability of borderline cases beyond the scope of the initial application. Option B. Strictly adhere to the predefined eligibility criteria and merit-based assessment guidelines, ensuring all admissions are determined solely by objective performance metrics and established university admission policies. Option C. Adjust the admission cutoff marks for certain categories of applicants based on the committee's subjective assessment of their potential or perceived need, without explicit amendment to the official examination guidelines. Option D. Prioritize applications that include strong personal recommendations from influential individuals, even if their academic scores are slightly below the stated cutoff, to foster goodwill and broader university engagement. The correct answer is B. Strictly adhere to the predefined eligibility criteria and merit-based assessment guidelines, ensuring all admissions are determined solely by objective performance metrics and established university admission policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's established admission policies and the potential for subjective interpretation or external influence on the selection process. Maintaining the integrity and fairness of the Andhra Pradesh University entrance examination is paramount, requiring strict adherence to its defined regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines. The challenge lies in ensuring that all decisions are based on objective criteria and transparent procedures, preventing any perception of bias or impropriety. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective evaluation of all applicant profiles strictly against the predefined eligibility criteria and merit-based assessment guidelines stipulated by Andhra University for its entrance examinations. This approach upholds the regulatory framework by ensuring that the selection process is fair, transparent, and consistently applied to all candidates, thereby safeguarding the academic standards and reputation of the university. It aligns with the ethical principle of meritocracy, which is fundamental to competitive entrance examinations. An incorrect approach that prioritizes personal recommendations over established merit criteria would violate the regulatory framework by introducing subjective bias and undermining the objective assessment process. This could lead to unfair advantages for some candidates and disadvantages for others, eroding trust in the examination's fairness. Another incorrect approach that involves altering admission cutoffs based on perceived candidate quality without explicit regulatory approval would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure, as it bypasses the established procedures and could be seen as arbitrary or discriminatory. Finally, an approach that delays the announcement of results to accommodate further scrutiny of specific candidates, beyond the defined review periods, risks compromising the timely and transparent conduct of the examination, potentially creating uncertainty and dissatisfaction among applicants, and deviating from the established procedural timelines. Professionals in this situation must employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the Andhra University's specific entrance examination regulations. This involves clearly understanding the established rules, seeking clarification when ambiguities arise, documenting all decisions and justifications, and resisting any pressure to deviate from the prescribed procedures. The focus should always be on maintaining the integrity and fairness of the process as defined by the governing regulations. Question 8. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed industrial partnership for the Andhra University campus offers significant immediate revenue streams, but also raises concerns about potential environmental pollution and displacement of local informal vendors. Which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical responsibilities of Andhra University? Option A. Proceed with the partnership, focusing on maximizing revenue and addressing environmental concerns only if they become legally mandated issues, while offering minimal compensation to displaced vendors. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive environmental and social impact assessment. Engage in extensive consultations with local communities and environmental experts, and explore alternative revenue models or mitigation strategies that minimize negative impacts before making a final decision. Option C. Prioritize the partnership based on the projected revenue, assuming that any environmental or social issues will be resolved through future government regulations or the partner's corporate social responsibility initiatives. Option D. Reject the partnership outright due to the potential for negative impacts, even if it means foregoing significant financial benefits that could be used for university development. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the partnership, focusing on maximizing revenue and addressing environmental concerns only if they become legally mandated issues, while offering minimal compensation to displaced vendors. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project and the long-term environmental and social implications, which are often harder to quantify in a traditional cost-benefit analysis. The university, as an educational institution, has a responsibility that extends beyond mere financial gain, encompassing its role in community development and environmental stewardship, as guided by the Andhra Pradesh state government's policies on sustainable development and environmental protection, and the University Grants Commission, UGC, guidelines on institutional social responsibility. Careful judgment is required to balance economic feasibility with ethical and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that goes beyond the immediate financial returns. This approach prioritizes a holistic evaluation of the project's potential effects on the local environment, community well-being, and the university's long-term reputation. It aligns with the principles of sustainable development mandated by Andhra Pradesh state regulations and the UGC's emphasis on responsible institutional practices. By incorporating qualitative factors and stakeholder consultations, this method ensures that decisions are not solely driven by short-term economic gains, but also by broader societal and environmental considerations, thereby upholding the university's ethical obligations and regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate financial gains, ignoring potential environmental degradation or community disruption, fails to comply with the spirit and letter of Andhra Pradesh's environmental protection laws and the UGC's directives on institutional social responsibility. Such an approach risks significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and a failure to contribute positively to the region's sustainable development. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes external stakeholder demands without a thorough internal assessment of the university's capacity and long-term strategic goals may lead to unsustainable commitments or a misallocation of resources, potentially violating internal university governance policies and the principles of prudent financial management. A third incorrect approach that relies on outdated or incomplete impact assessment methodologies would similarly fall short of current regulatory expectations and ethical standards, leading to unforeseen negative consequences. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of all applicable regulations and guidelines, including those from the Andhra Pradesh government and the UGC. This should be followed by a comprehensive impact assessment that considers economic, environmental, social, and ethical dimensions. Engaging with all relevant stakeholders, including local communities, environmental experts, and university faculty and administration, is crucial for gathering diverse perspectives and ensuring buy-in. Finally, decisions should be made based on a balanced evaluation of all assessed impacts, prioritizing long-term sustainability and ethical responsibility over short-term financial expediency. Question 9. When evaluating the most ethical and compliant method to prepare for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam, which of the following strategies best aligns with the university's regulatory framework and principles of academic integrity? Option A. Diligently studying the prescribed syllabus, utilizing official study materials, and practicing with past question papers and mock tests provided by authorized sources. Option B. Purchasing pre-solved question papers from unofficial online platforms that guarantee admission. Option C. Engaging with individuals who claim to possess leaked question papers or solved answers for a fee. Option D. Attempting to influence examination officials or invigilators to gain an unfair advantage. The correct answer is A. Diligently studying the prescribed syllabus, utilizing official study materials, and practicing with past question papers and mock tests provided by authorized sources. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for an aspiring student preparing for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam, specifically concerning the ethical implications of seeking unauthorized assistance. The core professional challenge lies in maintaining academic integrity and adhering to the examination's stated rules and regulations, which are paramount for a fair and equitable selection process. Misrepresenting one's qualifications or engaging in dishonest practices undermines the credibility of the examination and the university itself. The correct approach involves diligently preparing through legitimate means, such as studying prescribed syllabi, attending coaching classes if desired, and practicing with official mock tests. This approach aligns with the Andhra University's commitment to merit-based admissions and upholds the ethical principles of honesty and fairness expected of all candidates. Adhering to the examination's guidelines, which implicitly prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized aid, is a fundamental regulatory requirement for all entrance examinations, including those conducted by Andhra University. An incorrect approach of seeking assistance from individuals who claim to have access to leaked exam papers is a direct violation of academic integrity and the examination's rules. This constitutes an act of cheating, which is universally condemned and carries severe penalties, including disqualification from the exam and potential blacklisting from future admissions. Such an action demonstrates a lack of ethical judgment and a disregard for the principles of fair competition. Another incorrect approach of purchasing pre-solved question papers from unofficial sources also falls under the umbrella of academic dishonesty. This not only violates the examination's integrity, but also relies on potentially fraudulent materials, which can lead to severe consequences. Furthermore, attempting to bribe examination officials or invigilators is a criminal offense and a grave ethical breach, demonstrating a complete disregard for legal and moral standards. Professionals should approach such situations by prioritizing honesty, integrity, and adherence to established rules. The decision-making process should involve a clear understanding of the examination's regulations and a commitment to ethical conduct. When faced with temptations or opportunities for dishonest gains, individuals must critically assess the potential consequences, both immediate and long-term, and choose the path that upholds their personal integrity and respects the established framework of the examination. Question 10. The evaluation methodology shows a preliminary assessment of a proposed shift in the undergraduate physics syllabus for Andhra University Visakhapatnam. Which approach would best ensure the integrity and fairness of the upcoming entrance examination? Option A. Relying on the opinions of the senior faculty members who are primarily responsible for designing the entrance examination, assuming their expertise will accurately predict the effects of the syllabus change. Option B. Analyzing the administrative feasibility and cost-effectiveness of updating examination materials and question banks to align with the new syllabus, without extensive student or faculty consultation. Option C. Reviewing the syllabus of a top-ranked private university in another state and proposing similar changes to the Andhra University physics syllabus, assuming this will automatically enhance the entrance exam's rigor. Option D. Conducting a series of focus group discussions with a diverse range of current undergraduate physics students and recent graduates to gather their perspectives on the proposed syllabus changes and their perceived impact on entrance exam preparation. Correct answer is D. Conducting a series of focus group discussions with a diverse range of current undergraduate physics students and recent graduates to gather their perspectives on the proposed syllabus changes and their perceived impact on entrance exam preparation. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture in assessing the impact of a proposed curriculum change on the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of how academic policy shifts can affect the fairness, accessibility, and overall effectiveness of a high-stakes examination. The university must balance the need for curriculum modernization with the imperative to maintain a standardized and equitable assessment process for all aspiring students. Poorly executed impact assessment could lead to unintended consequences, such as disadvantaging certain student demographics or compromising the validity of the entrance exam as a measure of preparedness. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, multifaceted analysis that considers both quantitative and qualitative data. This includes surveying current students and faculty about perceived strengths and weaknesses of the existing curriculum, analyzing past entrance exam performance data in relation to curriculum coverage, and consulting with subject matter experts to predict how the proposed changes might alter the knowledge base tested. This approach aligns with the Andhra University's commitment to academic excellence and fair assessment practices, ensuring that any curriculum revision is data-driven and student-centric, thereby upholding the integrity of the entrance examination. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on anecdotal feedback from a small group of faculty members. This fails to capture the diverse perspectives of the student body and may be influenced by personal biases rather than objective educational impact. It also neglects the crucial step of analyzing historical performance data, which provides empirical evidence of the curriculum's current effectiveness in preparing students for the entrance exam. Furthermore, an approach that focuses only on the administrative ease of implementing the new curriculum, without considering its pedagogical implications for exam preparation, would be ethically unsound, as it prioritizes convenience over student welfare and fair competition. Professionals should adopt a systematic decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the objectives of the impact assessment. This involves identifying key stakeholders, determining the scope of the evaluation, and selecting appropriate methodologies. A thorough review of existing university policies and guidelines related to curriculum development and examination standards should inform the process. Finally, the findings should be transparently communicated, and recommendations should be actionable, ensuring that the university can make informed decisions that benefit the academic community. Question 11. Analysis of a scenario where an applicant for an Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam program submits a mark sheet from a previous institution that appears to have been altered to inflate grades. The admissions committee member responsible for initial document screening notices a significant and uncharacteristic improvement in the marks compared to the applicant's earlier academic performance. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee member, strictly adhering to the principles governing university entrance examinations in India, particularly as they pertain to Andhra University's admission framework? Option A. Immediately reject the application based on the suspicion of academic dishonesty. Option B. Accept the mark sheet as submitted, assuming the applicant has genuinely improved their academic performance. Option C. Forward the mark sheet for further verification by the university's academic records department and inform the applicant of the discrepancy, requesting an official transcript from the previous institution. Option D. Contact the applicant's previous institution directly to inquire about the authenticity of the mark sheet without informing the applicant. The correct answer is A. Immediately reject the application based on the suspicion of academic dishonesty. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's established admission policies and ethical standards. The applicant's attempt to misrepresent their academic record requires careful judgment to uphold the integrity of the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam process. The correct approach involves a thorough verification of all submitted documents against official records and a strict adherence to the university's stated admission criteria and anti-fraud policies. This upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all genuine applicants. Specifically, the Andhra University's admission guidelines, which are implicitly part of the entrance exam framework, mandate truthful representation of academic qualifications. Failure to verify and acting on potentially falsified information would violate these guidelines and compromise the integrity of the selection process. An incorrect approach would be to overlook the discrepancy, assuming it was a minor error or a misunderstanding. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic honesty and could lead to admitting an unqualified candidate, thereby disadvantaging deserving applicants and undermining the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate without further investigation or providing an opportunity for clarification. While vigilance is necessary, a fair process typically involves a review and, if appropriate, a chance for the applicant to explain any discrepancies, provided the university's policy allows for such a process in cases of suspected misrepresentation. This approach might be overly punitive and not in line with a balanced, fair admissions procedure. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the applicant's explanation without independent verification, especially if the explanation seems improbable or contradicts readily available official records. This again compromises the integrity of the admission process and sets a dangerous precedent. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the discrepancy and its potential implications. 2. Consulting the Andhra University's official admission regulations and any specific policies regarding document verification and academic integrity. 3. Initiating a formal verification process for the questionable document. 4. If a discrepancy is confirmed, following the university's established procedure for handling such cases, which may include seeking an explanation from the applicant or proceeding with disqualification based on policy. 5. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 12. Benchmark analysis indicates that Andhra University is considering a significant donation from a large corporation that has expressed interest in influencing the admission of a select number of students. The university's administration is under pressure to secure funding for new research facilities. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university admissions at Andhra University? Option A. Reject the donation outright due to the potential for ethical conflicts and the risk of reputational damage, regardless of the potential benefits to the university. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence on the corporation and its proposal, ensuring any partnership strictly adheres to existing admission policies and ethical guidelines, with no preferential treatment offered in exchange for the donation. Option C. Negotiate a separate agreement with the corporation that guarantees admission for a specified number of students in exchange for the donation, to be managed by a special committee. Option D. Accept the donation immediately to secure the much-needed funding, with a verbal understanding that the corporation's preferences will be considered during admissions. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence on the corporation and its proposal, ensuring any partnership strictly adheres to existing admission policies and ethical guidelines, with no preferential treatment offered in exchange for the donation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the admissions process. The pressure to secure a significant donation from a potential corporate sponsor, whose business practices might be under scrutiny, requires careful navigation to uphold academic standards and institutional reputation. The decision-maker must balance financial imperatives with the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy central to university admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough, independent due diligence process that prioritizes the university's established admission criteria and ethical guidelines. This means rigorously evaluating the sponsor's proposal against the Andhra University's existing policies on corporate partnerships and admissions, ensuring no undue influence or preferential treatment is offered in return for the donation. This approach aligns with the ethical framework expected of educational institutions, which mandates that admissions decisions be based on academic merit and adherence to established procedures, free from external pressure or quid pro quo arrangements. It upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and safeguards the university's reputation for academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to accept the donation without adequate scrutiny, thereby potentially compromising the admissions process. This would represent a failure to adhere to institutional policies and ethical standards, creating a perception of impropriety and undermining the trust placed in the university by students, faculty, and the wider community. Such an action could lead to accusations of favoritism, damage the university's standing, and potentially invite regulatory scrutiny if the sponsor's business practices are found to be unethical or illegal. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the donation outright due to the potential for scrutiny, without exploring avenues for a mutually beneficial partnership that respects academic integrity. This might be driven by an overly cautious stance that overlooks legitimate opportunities for institutional development and societal engagement. While prudence is necessary, a complete rejection without exploring ethical compromises could hinder the university's growth and its ability to fund valuable academic programs and research. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, including the admissions committee, legal counsel, and the ethics committee, to ensure all perspectives and potential ramifications are considered. A clear framework for evaluating corporate partnerships, with defined ethical boundaries and transparency mechanisms, should be in place. The decision-maker must prioritize adherence to the Andhra University's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines, ensuring that any partnership serves the best interests of the institution and its academic mission without compromising its core values. Question 13. Compliance review shows that an applicant for an Andhra University entrance exam program has a slightly lower score than the typical admitted student, but their application highlights significant extracurricular achievements and a compelling personal statement detailing overcoming significant socio-economic challenges that impacted their prior academic performance. Which risk assessment approach best aligns with the principles of fair and equitable admissions under Andhra University's framework? Option A. Forward the application to a higher authority for a decision without conducting an initial risk assessment, as the situation presents ambiguity. Option B. Reject the applicant outright due to their score falling below the average of previously admitted students, as this is the most straightforward way to maintain established academic benchmarks. Option C. Recommend admission based on the applicant's compelling personal narrative alone, without a detailed assessment of their academic aptitude or potential to meet program requirements. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire profile, including academic history, extracurriculars, and personal statement, assessing their potential for success in the program while considering the context of their challenges, and documenting any deviations from standard admission metrics with a clear justification based on university guidelines. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire profile, including academic history, extracurriculars, and personal statement, assessing their potential for success in the program while considering the context of their challenges, and documenting any deviations from standard admission metrics with a clear justification based on university guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an admissions committee member to balance the university's commitment to academic merit with the need to ensure fair and equitable access to education, while also adhering to the specific admission guidelines of Andhra University. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these guidelines in a situation where a candidate's profile might not perfectly align with standard metrics, but could still demonstrate potential. A risk assessment approach is crucial to identify potential biases, ensure transparency, and uphold the integrity of the admission process. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that systematically identifies potential risks to the fairness and validity of the admission decision. This includes evaluating the candidate's academic record in the context of their educational background, considering any extenuating circumstances that might have affected their performance, and assessing their potential for success in the chosen program through non-traditional indicators if available. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of fairness and due diligence expected of university admissions, ensuring that decisions are based on a holistic understanding of the applicant and are defensible under Andhra University's admission framework. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate solely based on a superficial comparison to the average scores of admitted students without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge that the Andhra University entrance exam framework likely allows for consideration of diverse applicant profiles, and may not mandate a rigid adherence to statistical averages as the sole determinant of eligibility. Another incorrect approach would be to grant admission without a thorough risk assessment, simply due to a personal acquaintance or a desire to meet diversity quotas without a clear policy basis. This bypasses the established admission procedures and could lead to accusations of favoritism or a compromised admission standard, violating the principles of meritocracy and transparency. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves first understanding the specific admission regulations and guidelines of Andhra University. Then, they should identify the potential risks associated with admitting or rejecting a candidate, considering factors like academic potential, fairness, and adherence to policy. Next, they should gather all relevant information about the candidate, including academic transcripts, any supporting documents, and information about their background. Finally, they should apply the university's admission criteria in a consistent and objective manner, documenting the rationale for their decision, especially in borderline cases, to ensure accountability and transparency. Question 14. Research into the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam admission process reveals a candidate with a slightly below-average entrance exam score, but a strong recommendation from a respected alumnus, who is also a member of the university's governing body. The candidate's academic background otherwise meets the minimum requirements. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Admit the candidate based on the alumnus's recommendation, assuming it signifies potential beyond the entrance exam score. Option B. Evaluate the candidate's application strictly against the published entrance exam score cutoffs and other admission criteria, irrespective of the recommendation. Option C. Inform the candidate that their entrance exam score is too low and reject the application immediately, disregarding the recommendation and other aspects of their profile. Option D. Request the alumnus to provide additional evidence of the candidate's suitability that is not covered by the standard admission criteria. The correct answer is B. Evaluate the candidate's application strictly against the published entrance exam score cutoffs and other admission criteria, irrespective of the recommendation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a candidate who may not fully meet the established criteria. The decision-maker must navigate the ethical imperative of upholding admission standards against potential external influences or perceived benefits of admitting a particular student. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to the Andhra University's entrance exam regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's application against all published admission criteria for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam. This includes scrutinizing academic records, entrance exam scores, and any other stipulated requirements. The decision should be based solely on whether the candidate meets these defined standards, without undue influence from external factors. This aligns with the regulatory framework of the Andhra University entrance exam, which emphasizes merit-based selection and fair assessment. Ethically, this approach upholds principles of fairness, impartiality, and transparency in the admissions process, ensuring that all applicants are treated equitably. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or relax the established admission criteria for the candidate. This could manifest as overlooking a lower-than-required entrance exam score or accepting incomplete documentation without proper justification. Such actions would violate the regulatory framework by deviating from the prescribed admission process and potentially creating an unfair advantage. Ethically, this approach undermines the principle of meritocracy and could lead to perceptions of favoritism or corruption, damaging the reputation of the university and the integrity of its entrance examination. Another incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the recommendation of a senior faculty member without independently verifying the candidate's qualifications against the official criteria. While recommendations can be considered, they should not supersede the established admission guidelines. Failing to conduct an independent assessment based on the published regulations would be a regulatory failure. Ethically, this approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, compromising the academic standards of the program. A professional decision-making framework for similar situations should involve: 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to the published admission regulations and guidelines of the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam. 2. Objectively assessing all applications based on the defined criteria, ensuring consistency and fairness. 3. Documenting the decision-making process thoroughly, including the rationale for acceptance or rejection. 4. Seeking clarification from the examination authorities or relevant committees if any ambiguity arises regarding the regulations or a specific application. 5. Resisting any undue pressure or influence that could compromise the integrity of the admissions process. Question 15. Operational review demonstrates a significant opportunity for a substantial donation from a new, potentially influential donor to fund a critical new research initiative at Andhra University. However, preliminary inquiries suggest the donor's business practices have faced public scrutiny in the past, raising concerns about potential reputational risks for the university. Which of the following approaches best aligns with responsible institutional governance and risk management for Andhra University? Option A. Accept the donation immediately to secure the much-needed funding for the research initiative, assuming the past scrutiny is not directly relevant to the university's operations. Option B. Rely on informal assurances from the donor and internal proponents of the initiative that there are no significant issues, and proceed with the funding. Option C. Proceed with the donation, but implement a strict internal communication blackout regarding the donor's past controversies to avoid public perception issues. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background, business practices, and the potential implications of the donation on academic freedom and university reputation before accepting any funds. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the donor's background, business practices, and the potential implications of the donation on academic freedom and university reputation before accepting any funds. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical imperative to maintain academic integrity and transparency. The pressure to secure funding can lead to overlooking potential risks or misrepresenting information, which could have long-term detrimental effects on the university's reputation and the quality of education provided. Careful judgment is required to balance financial objectives with the core mission of the institution. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of all potential risks associated with the proposed funding source. This includes evaluating the donor's reputation, the potential for undue influence on academic programs or research, and any reputational damage that might arise from association with the donor. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and ethical financial management expected of educational institutions. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit guidelines of responsible institutional management and the ethical standards of academic institutions, which prioritize academic freedom, integrity, and the public trust over short-term financial gains. While Andhra University may not have explicit, publicly codified regulations for every nuance of donor risk assessment, the overarching principles of responsible stewardship and maintaining academic standards are universally understood and expected. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize the immediate financial benefit without adequate due diligence. This could manifest as accepting the funding without investigating the donor's background or the potential strings attached. Such an approach fails to uphold the university's responsibility to its students, faculty, and the wider community by potentially compromising academic independence and institutional reputation. It also risks violating ethical principles of transparency and accountability in financial dealings. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the funding based on informal assurances from the donor or internal stakeholders, without establishing formal risk mitigation strategies. This bypasses the necessary checks and balances that protect the university from potential conflicts of interest or reputational harm. It demonstrates a lack of professional rigor and a failure to adhere to best practices in institutional financial management. A further incorrect approach would be to dismiss concerns raised by internal stakeholders regarding the donor's background or the potential implications of the funding. This demonstrates a disregard for internal checks and balances and a failure to engage in a comprehensive risk assessment process. It can lead to decisions that are not in the best long-term interest of the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing a clear framework for evaluating potential funding sources. This framework should include defined criteria for due diligence, risk assessment, and approval processes. It should also encourage open communication and the consideration of diverse perspectives from relevant stakeholders within the university. Prioritizing transparency, ethical conduct, and the long-term sustainability of the institution's academic mission should guide all decisions related to financial partnerships. Question 16. Comparative studies suggest that while standardized entrance examination scores are a primary determinant for admission to Andhra University, the holistic evaluation of an applicant's potential remains crucial. An applicant for a postgraduate program at Andhra University has narrowly missed the minimum cutoff score for the entrance examination. However, they have submitted a detailed personal statement and supporting medical documentation outlining a severe illness that significantly impacted their preparation and performance during the examination period. The admissions committee is reviewing the application. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of fair and comprehensive evaluation within the context of Andhra University's admission framework? Option A. Grant admission based on the applicant's strong personal statement and the perceived potential, irrespective of the entrance examination score or formal review process. Option B. Review the applicant's supporting documentation regarding their illness and consult with the Departmental Admissions Committee to determine if special consideration is warranted, following established university protocols for exceptional circumstances. Option C. Strictly adhere to the stated cutoff score and reject the application, as the examination score is the definitive criterion. Option D. Inform the applicant that their score is below the threshold and advise them to reapply for the next academic year without reviewing the provided medical documentation. The correct answer is C. Strictly adhere to the stated cutoff score and reject the application, as the examination score is the definitive criterion. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic admissions where an applicant's past academic performance, while not meeting the standard cutoff, is supported by extenuating circumstances. The challenge lies in balancing the university's established admission criteria with the need for fairness and the potential of a promising candidate who may have faced unusual difficulties. The Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam regulations, while providing clear cutoffs, also often include provisions for holistic review or special consideration, requiring careful interpretation and application. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's supporting documentation, an assessment of the extenuating circumstances, and a consultation with the relevant departmental admissions committee. This aligns with the principles of fair assessment and the spirit of the Andhra University's admission guidelines, which likely allow for exceptions under documented hardship. The emphasis is on understanding the applicant's potential beyond just the raw scores, ensuring that genuine barriers to academic success are acknowledged and considered. This approach upholds the university's commitment to inclusivity while maintaining academic standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to strictly adhere to the numerical cutoff without any further consideration. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of extenuating circumstances, which could lead to the rejection of a potentially strong candidate who was genuinely hindered by factors beyond their control. This approach may violate principles of natural justice and fairness embedded within the broader regulatory framework governing educational institutions in India, which often advocate for a humane and considerate approach to admissions. Another incorrect approach is to bypass the established review process and grant admission based solely on the applicant's personal appeal or a recommendation from a faculty member without proper documentation or committee approval. This undermines the integrity of the admission process, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism and a breach of procedural fairness. It disregards the structured evaluation mechanisms designed to ensure objectivity and transparency in admissions, as stipulated by university regulations. A third incorrect approach is to dismiss the application outright based on the initial score, without even reviewing the provided documentation for extenuating circumstances. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to engage with the full scope of the admission process. It misses the opportunity to apply the university's policies on special consideration, thereby potentially misjudging the applicant's true capabilities and circumstances. Professional reasoning. Professionals in admissions should adopt a structured, evidence-based, and fair decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the specific admission regulations and guidelines of Andhra University, including any provisions for special consideration or appeals. 2. Thoroughly reviewing all submitted documentation, paying close attention to evidence supporting extenuating circumstances. 3. Consulting with relevant committees or senior officials as per university policy to ensure a consistent and justified decision. 4. Documenting the entire process and the rationale for the final decision to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 17. The efficiency study reveals potential anomalies in the procurement process of a specific research equipment within a department at Andhra University, Visakhapatnam, suggesting a possible overspending trend compared to similar past acquisitions. Which of the following risk assessment approaches would be most appropriate for the university administration to adopt? Option A. Conduct a detailed review of all procurement records for the past 3 years, cross-referencing vendor invoices with equipment specifications and market price benchmarks, while also interviewing key personnel involved in the procurement to understand the decision-making process and any unique circumstances. Option B. Assume the identified anomalies are due to inflation and increased technological complexity, and therefore require no further investigation. Option C. Initiate disciplinary proceedings against the department head based on the initial findings of the efficiency study, without further inquiry. Option D. Immediately issue a directive to all departments to reduce their research equipment budgets by 15% to compensate for the potential overspending identified. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed review of all procurement records for the past 3 years, cross-referencing vendor invoices with equipment specifications and market price benchmarks, while also interviewing key personnel involved in the procurement to understand the decision-making process and any unique circumstances. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals potential discrepancies in resource allocation within a department of Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of university administrative policies, ethical considerations regarding financial stewardship, and the potential impact on academic operations. A hasty or biased assessment could lead to unfair accusations, damage departmental morale, or overlook systemic issues. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based risk assessment. This means meticulously gathering data, cross-referencing financial records with operational logs, and identifying patterns that suggest actual mismanagement rather than mere inefficiencies or reporting anomalies. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and accountability expected of public educational institutions like Andhra University. It is ethically imperative to ensure that university funds are utilized effectively and transparently, and a structured risk assessment is the most appropriate method to identify and address any deviations from this principle, adhering to the university's internal financial regulations and audit guidelines. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement punitive measures based on preliminary findings. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of errors in data collection or interpretation and bypasses the due process required by university policy. It also risks alienating staff and creating a climate of distrust, which is detrimental to departmental efficiency. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the findings without further investigation, assuming that any observed variations are within acceptable tolerance levels. This neglects the university's responsibility to proactively manage risks and could allow genuine financial irregularities to persist, potentially leading to significant losses or reputational damage. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on individual blame without examining the underlying processes or controls that may have contributed to the observed discrepancies. This superficial analysis fails to address the root causes and is unlikely to prevent future issues. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes objectivity, thoroughness, and adherence to established procedures. This involves defining the scope of the risk assessment, identifying potential risks, evaluating the likelihood and impact of these risks, and developing appropriate mitigation strategies. Communication with relevant stakeholders, including departmental heads and audit committees, should be transparent and timely, ensuring that all parties are informed and have an opportunity to provide input. Question 18. Regulatory review indicates that the Andhra University Visakhapatnam Entrance Exam Administration is seeking to optimize the application processing workflow. Considering the specific regulatory framework governing this examination, which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of process optimization while ensuring strict adherence to university guidelines? Option A. Focusing solely on reducing the turnaround time for application processing by automating the initial stages, with a plan to address any regulatory compliance issues that arise retrospectively. Option B. Developing and implementing a streamlined, multi-stage verification process that meticulously checks each application against the Andhra University Entrance Exam Prospectus and all relevant circulars at every stage, utilizing technology to enhance speed without compromising thoroughness. Option C. Allowing departmental heads to exercise discretion in waiving certain documentary requirements for applications deemed high potential to expedite the admission of promising candidates. Option D. Implementing a system that prioritizes rapid data entry and submission of applications, with a provision for post-submission verification of critical documents only if discrepancies are flagged by the system. The correct answer is D. Implementing a system that prioritizes rapid data entry and submission of applications, with a provision for post-submission verification of critical documents only if discrepancies are flagged by the system. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing administrative processes for efficiency and ensuring strict adherence to the established regulatory framework of Andhra University for its entrance examinations. The need for speed in processing applications must be balanced against the university's specific guidelines, which are designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the admission process. Misinterpreting or circumventing these guidelines, even with the intention of improving efficiency, can lead to procedural errors, potential legal challenges, and damage to the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict application of the Andhra University Entrance Exam regulations. This means meticulously verifying each document against the prescribed checklist, ensuring all eligibility criteria are met as per the university's official prospectus and any subsequent circulars. This approach is correct because it prioritizes compliance with the governing regulations, which are the ultimate authority for the examination process. Adherence to these rules safeguards the fairness of the selection process, prevents arbitrary decisions, and ensures that all candidates are evaluated on the same, legally sanctioned criteria. It upholds the principles of natural justice and the specific mandates set forth by Andhra University. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over verification would fail to meet the regulatory requirements. For instance, accepting applications without confirming the authenticity or completeness of required documents, based on a presumption of correctness, violates the principle of due diligence mandated by any examination framework. This could lead to ineligible candidates being admitted, undermining the merit-based selection process and potentially leading to disputes. Another incorrect approach, such as deviating from the prescribed verification steps to expedite processing, directly contravenes the established procedures. This bypasses critical checks designed to prevent errors and fraud, thereby violating the regulatory framework and compromising the integrity of the entrance examination. Such actions could be seen as arbitrary and unfair to candidates who have meticulously followed the rules. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the Andhra University entrance exam regulations. This involves consulting the official prospectus, any addendums, and university circulars. When faced with a process optimization task, the primary consideration must always be how to achieve efficiency within the bounds of these regulations. This means identifying bottlenecks in the existing process and exploring ways to streamline them without compromising any mandatory checks or requirements. If a proposed optimization appears to conflict with a regulation, the professional must seek clarification from the appropriate university authorities or legal counsel before implementation. The goal is to enhance efficiency through better organization, technology adoption, or staff training, rather than by altering or ignoring the established rules. Question 19. Consider a scenario where an applicant for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam has completed a degree from a foreign institution that is not explicitly listed in the university's recognized qualifications. The applicant is unsure if their degree meets the eligibility criteria and is aware of a common practice among some students to slightly alter their academic transcripts to align with perceived requirements. What is the most appropriate course of action for this applicant? Option A. Modify their academic transcript to reflect a degree that is explicitly listed in the university's recognized qualifications before submitting the application. Option B. Submit their application with their original foreign degree transcript, assuming the university will evaluate its equivalence during the admission process. Option C. Directly contact the Andhra University Admissions Office to inquire about the recognition of their foreign degree and seek clarification on the eligibility criteria. Option D. Rely on advice from online forums and peers who have applied to Andhra University in the past to determine the likely acceptance of their foreign degree. The correct answer is C. Directly contact the Andhra University Admissions Office to inquire about the recognition of their foreign degree and seek clarification on the eligibility criteria. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to navigate the specific admission policies and ethical considerations of Andhra University for its entrance exam, rather than relying on general university admission principles. The core of the challenge lies in understanding and applying the university's stated criteria for eligibility and the integrity of the examination process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the applicant's actions align with the university's regulations and uphold the fairness of the entrance examination. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Andhra University entrance exam prospectus and any accompanying guidelines. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the specific regulatory framework governing the examination. By consulting the official documentation, the applicant can ascertain the precise eligibility criteria, including any stipulations regarding prior academic qualifications, age limits, or specific subject prerequisites. Furthermore, understanding the university's stance on academic integrity and the consequences of misrepresentation is paramount. Adhering to these documented requirements ensures compliance with the established laws and guidelines for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam, thereby demonstrating a commitment to ethical conduct and a genuine understanding of the admission process. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general university admission standards apply without verifying them against the Andhra University entrance exam-specific rules. This is a regulatory failure because it disregards the unique jurisdiction of the exam. Another incorrect approach would be to submit an application with incomplete or potentially misleading information, hoping it might be overlooked. This constitutes an ethical failure and a violation of the university's guidelines on honesty and transparency, potentially leading to disqualification and damaging the applicant's reputation. Relying on informal advice from peers or unverified online sources without cross-referencing with official university documents is also an incorrect approach, as it risks misinterpreting or misapplying the specific regulations, leading to non-compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, identify the specific regulatory body and the relevant examination or admission process. Second, locate and meticulously study all official documentation, prospectus, rules, guidelines provided by that body. Third, clarify any ambiguities by directly contacting the relevant university admissions office. Fourth, ensure all submitted information is accurate, complete, and directly addresses the stated requirements. Finally, maintain a commitment to ethical conduct throughout the application process. Question 20. Operational review demonstrates that a prominent alumnus has strongly advocated for the admission of their ward, who has narrowly missed the cutoff score for a highly sought-after program in the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam. The admissions committee is aware of the alumnus's influence. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for the Andhra University Visakhapatnam entrance exam? Option A. The admissions committee should convene a special meeting with the alumnus to discuss potential alternative pathways for admission that do not involve compromising the established entrance exam criteria. Option B. The admissions committee should inform the alumnus that their ward's application will be given special consideration due to their significant contributions to the university, even if they do not fully meet the standard cutoff. Option C. The admissions committee should consider the alumnus's recommendation as a significant factor and grant the candidate admission, provided they are close to the cutoff score, to foster goodwill with influential stakeholders. Option D. The admissions committee should proceed with a comprehensive review of the candidate's application against all established admission criteria, including academic records and entrance exam performance, and recommend admission only if the candidate demonstrably meets all requirements, irrespective of the alumnus's recommendation. The correct answer is D. The admissions committee should proceed with a comprehensive review of the candidate's application against all established admission criteria, including academic records and entrance exam performance, and recommend admission only if the candidate demonstrably meets all requirements, irrespective of the alumnus's recommendation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a candidate who may not meet the established criteria. The admissions committee must navigate this delicate situation by adhering strictly to the Andhra University's entrance exam regulations and guidelines, ensuring fairness and transparency in the selection process. The challenge lies in balancing institutional goals with the ethical imperative to uphold meritocracy and prevent undue influence. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of the candidate's application against all stipulated admission criteria, as defined by the Andhra University's entrance exam framework. This includes verifying academic records, entrance exam scores, and any other relevant documentation. If the candidate falls short of the defined benchmarks, the committee must recommend rejection based on the established regulations, without succumbing to external pressures or personal biases. This upholds the principle of merit-based admission, which is a cornerstone of academic institutions and is implicitly or explicitly governed by the entrance exam's regulatory framework. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or relax the established admission criteria for this specific candidate. This action directly violates the Andhra University's entrance exam regulations by creating an exception that is not provided for in the official guidelines. Such a deviation undermines the integrity of the entire admission process, potentially leading to legal challenges and reputational damage for the university. It also sets a dangerous precedent, encouraging future attempts at undue influence and eroding trust in the fairness of the selection process. Furthermore, admitting a candidate who does not meet the required academic standards compromises the quality of the student cohort and can negatively impact the academic environment. Professionals in admissions committees must employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical principles. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing the specific regulations of the Andhra University entrance exam. 2. Objectively assessing all applications based solely on these criteria. 3. Documenting the evaluation process meticulously. 4. Seeking clarification from university authorities if ambiguities arise in the regulations. 5. Resisting any form of external pressure or personal bias that could compromise the integrity of the decision. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all admission decisions are fair, transparent, and legally sound, reflecting the university's commitment to academic excellence.